Welcome to Talking with the Experts. This is where we discuss great ideas to take your business to the next level. How do we know these ideas work? Well, it's because we're talking with business owners who are using these ideas. Business owners who have years of experience and expertise. All things business by business owners for business owners. And now, here is your host, Rose Davidson.
Hi, I'm Rose Davidson from Talking with the Experts. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Global Glamping Charities for their valued support. Global Glamping Charities, solving homelessness in all its forms. Reach out to them at globalglamping.org.
Talking with the Experts.
In episode 478, David Price shares with us how we can keep going in the face of obstacles and challenges when we face them in business.
And that's one thing I want to mention before we move on from that, because it's such a beautiful point that you just made, bringing up COVID, and not to in any way diminish the seriousness for many people, the tragedy of COVID, not to diminish that in the least. But, you know, Rose, during COVID, there were a lot of businesses that were started. There were a lot of people that pivoted with online and that sort of thing. And a lot of people learned how to get a lot of traction in different sorts of ways. A lot of people were very creative during COVID, and COVID was a tragedy. There's no question about that for a lot of reasons. But one thing that COVID helped us to learn is that no matter what happens, you've got to be willing to be creative and to try different things and do different things instead of just throw up your hands and say, well, you know, there's this big obstacle, it's over.
Talking with the Experts.
Hello and welcome to Talking with the Experts. I'm your host, Rose Davidson from rosedavidson.com. Talking with the Experts is about business by business owners for business owners. You can find it on all good podcast streaming platforms and on YouTube. Now, have you ever thought about how many challenges business owners are facing? And it's really an uphill journey as they try to start to build, maintain and scale their businesses. My next guest, David Price, is going to elaborate on why and how we can keep going to be more powerful and use his proven and practical tools that make everyday life doable and practical. Now, David is a certified professional life coach, and he is the business owner who has encountered and overcome practically every difficulty in business that you can even imagine. He's committed to his vision and to the well-being of his clients, and the world keeps him going on a daily basis. So helping his clients keeps him going. Oh my goodness, I'm getting really tongue-tied. David is my first interview for today. And so, yeah, I'm not really up with the niceties of interviewing guests. David, it's a great pleasure. Thank you so much for joining me so early in the morning.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here, Rose. Thank you for what you do. I know as a business owner, it's so important to have people like you in our corner helping us to keep going. And I just really appreciate you letting me be here.
Oh, it's my great pleasure. And I mean, I love helping and I love meeting new people, and whatever I can do to make the world a better place, it's
Absolutely.
My goal every single day.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell me a little bit about how you got to where you are now.
Well, my father died when I was 7 years old. He was only 44, and I lost him when I was 7. It left my mother and I. And that really was a very traumatic experience for me. And for many decades, I allowed that to be my excuse for really not getting a lot of things right in life. I was a failure at a lot of things I did. I just really got a lot of things wrong. And I constantly blamed it on losing my father. And so I was just really stuck. I was miserable, frustrated. I was about 100 pounds overweight for a long time, and just really had a really rough life because of what I was making excuses and blaming and that sort of thing. Finally, I hit my lowest point, and I reached out to a friend of mine. A friend of mine shared a personal growth book with me called The University of Success by Og Mandino. By chapter 2, I was a brand new man, and that led to lots of other personal growth books, podcasts, etc. And I just fell in love with personal growth because of what it did for me. It just completely changed my life. And so I decided I wanted to start helping other people experience what I was experiencing. And so I got certified as a life coach, started my own business. And for about the past 6 years, I've been doing that and just trying to help people and trying to make a business out of it as well. So that's kind of how I got to where I am today.
Oh, that's a pretty of a frightening journey for a child to lose a parent at such a young age. Unfortunately, we can't blame those things on how we behave, although we like to.
We like to try. It doesn't work very well.
No, it makes our life miserable and makes the life of those around us absolutely horrendous. I think it would be wouldn't be too strong of a word.
No, it really was awful. And I started blaming my father early, and then I moved to blaming my mother, my wife, my kids, and everything in the world, blaming for the condition that I was in. And this is why what changed my life initially was taking personal responsibility. And I think for your listeners and viewers, that's where it begins as far as making a go in business. If you're going to blame everybody, customers, clients, the economy, the government, if you're going to blame everybody else, you're going to be miserable, and you're probably not going to last very long as an entrepreneur or a business owner. We've got to take personal responsibility. And if we did not create the situation, we've at least got to choose our response to it, choose a positive response, and choose a proactive response instead of sitting around and complaining and griping about how things are. We have to do something about it, or we're just not going to get anywhere.
Absolutely. I've got a close family member who blames everything on everyone else except for himself. Like his behavior is the fault of the way he was brought up, or the way he was neglected, or the way he was this, or the way he was that. But quite honestly, he's made choices, and those choices are reflected in his lifestyle. And he has to take responsibility for that. Unfortunately, he doesn't. He was much like you, blamed everyone else for his misdeeds, I suppose. And hasn't gotten him very far. But the point being is that now he's estranged from all of the family. No one will speak to him because it's always such an issue. To try and get any sense out of him. But never mind. That's neither here nor there. David, tell me how we can keep going in the face of obstacles and challenges. How can, as a business owner, how can we, take responsibility for our actions, and how can we face those obstacles head on and overcome them?
Well, we certainly need to figure out how, because, I know that other business owners have had the same experience. I knew it was going to be hard starting a business, and starting the business is easy. Keeping it going is the hard part. I knew that was going to be hard, but I had no idea how hard. I had no idea how long it would take. I had no idea how many challenges I would face. It's been so much harder than it's like parenthood. I knew it would be hard, but boy, I didn't know it would be this hard. And so we've got to figure that out, because there are going to be times when we're not getting the customers or clients, we're not getting the revenue, we're not getting the traction, everything is failing. And I think a lot of it begins with understanding a compelling reason for why we're doing what we're doing. To me, that's the really big piece of it. Why am I doing what I'm doing? I have to keep coming back to this myself and reminding myself, because so many things are going to go wrong. And so many things are going to go against it. So I illustrate it this way. Rose, if you and I were standing on top of a 30-story building, and there were another 30-story building next to us, and all there was between the buildings was a wood plank. And I said to you, Rose, if you will walk across that wood plank to the other building, I'll give you $5, or I'm not sure what the currency is there where you are, but here in the States, $5 is not a lot of money.
No, not here either.
Right. So if I told you I will give you $5 to walk across that plank 30 stories high, you're going to turn that, you're going to think I'm crazy. You're not going to do that. But if I said to you, Rose, your child or your spouse, your loved one is in danger on that other building, if you don't walk across that plank, they're going to die. You would absolutely walk across that plank. The consequences are the same. The fear is the same. The only thing that's different is the motivation. And so we've really got to stay in touch with, why did we start doing what we do? A lot of times I get wrapped up in the clients or the revenue. I get wrapped up in the impact, the likes and the shares and that kind of thing. And I forget that the reason I started this thing was because my life was completely changed and I wanted to help other people do the same thing. When we forget that, we just get stuck and we want to quit. And the reason we forget that, I believe, Rose, is because we put our heads down. We're constantly working on the details of the business, and we're not kind of pulling out and looking at big picture things. We're not growing personally. We don't have good habits and routines. We just get stuck in the business, and that can be overwhelming.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we get too stuck on the how, and we don't, when we tend to overlook the why quite often. There's been times when I've wanted to give away this podcast, and I think, no, my why is that I want to help people. So if I don't turn up, then I'm not going to help either the person that I'm speaking with, or I'm not going to help my audience members. So, so I keep going even when I don't really want to, because, it's not hard to be a podcaster, but it can be a little bit challenging. And so far I've had really great guests, so I don't have too much to complain about.
That makes it better. That makes it better. And, Rose, that's a great point that you alluded to there, is the relationships that we make, the relationships that we have. This is one thing that really keeps us going. One thing that, that gets you up in the morning and really motivates you to keep doing this podcast is the people that you're meeting, the people that you're connecting with, the people that you're helping. It really, at the end of the day, it's all about people. It's about relationships. And my goodness, I think about the relationships I've made and the relationships that have deepened because of the work that I do. And I wouldn't trade anything for getting to meet people like you and other people that I'm just, these fantastic people. And it's the people that keep us going. You can't have enough positive relationships in your life, and you can't get rid of enough negative relationships as much as that's possible. You really need to really cultivate a good network of relationships.
Yeah, that's very, very true. And as a business owner, we face a lot of obstacles, especially if you've got family, you're working from home, and COVID really put a hammer into all of us when we were actually shut down and shut in, and we couldn't leave. And there were a lot of obstacles to face then, and now that we're all allowed to be pretty much free and unrestricted, the challenges are still there, but the being closed in is definitely not one of them. But that was a huge obstacle for a lot of people who were used to getting on the train or the bus or driving to work or however their mode of transport was, to leave their homes, and all of a sudden they were locked in there 24/7. And and as a business owner, you couldn't go and meet people. You had to do everything over Zoom, and thank you for Zoom, because they came to the party quickly. As soon as lockdown came, they changed everything, and it was easy to Zoom now. And a lot of people now are preferring to have Zoom meetings because they don't have to travel, they don't have to pay for accommodation, they don't have to leave their house. They can do it in their pajamas, basically. Just change their shirt. They can eat their breakfast.
How did you know?
Have their
Rose,
coffee or whatever.
How did you know what do I'm wearing? I'm wearing my pajama pants and a t-shirt. How did you know that?
It's 4:30 in the morning, David.
You're really good.
But
Rose,
but life changed. But but we still have those same sort of business type obstacles where we're not getting our messaging right, and we're not reaching the right clients. But then that comes back to our why, and we have to revisit that, and you've got to be really clear on that.
You do. And that's one thing I want to mention before we move on from that, because such a beautiful point that you just made, bringing up COVID, and not to in any way diminish the seriousness for many people, the tragedy of COVID, not to diminish that in the least. But, Rose, during COVID, there were a lot of businesses that were started. There were a lot of people that pivoted with online and that sort of thing. And a lot of people learned how to get a lot of traction in different sorts of ways. A lot of people were very creative during COVID, and COVID was a tragedy. There's no question about that for a lot of reasons. But one thing that COVID helped us to learn is that no matter what happens, you've got to be willing to be creative and to try different things and do different things, instead of just throw up your hands and say, well, there's this big obstacle, it's over. A lot of people really got a lot of traction during COVID and other, things as well. So the big way that we teach people to really stay connected to what matters to them. So in my programs, I have what I call 4 pillars of personal success. And the third pillar of personal success is writing out your ideal life vision. So getting really specific about the life that you want to live, answering the big questions: where do I want to live? Who do I want to spend my time with? All those sorts of things. And writing out a really specific, emotion-filled, sensory-filled description of the life that you want to live, writing it out, handwriting it out, and then reading that every single morning, reading your vision, connecting with your vision, connecting with what you want to create, right? So that you don't get so down in the details of the business, just day-to-day work, but you remember why you're doing all of this. And that's a really powerful thing. Another thing that we teach in connection with that is creation of a vision board. And I'm sure most folks know what that is, but you just take a board, or you can do it digitally, and you put images, words, phrases, Bible verses, whatever it is that you want on your board, and you can see it visually, what it is that you're trying to create. And that has been super powerful for me as well. And so what we're doing is creating this vision of the life that we want to create, and we're connecting with that every day. So we don't ever forget, this is why I'm doing the CRM. This is why I'm doing the marketing. This is why I'm doing the copywriting. This is why I'm doing the slog every single day, because I've got this big thing I'm trying to create. If we lose connection with that, we're going to quit.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. That's very, very true. And, that goes back to our why we're doing what we're doing, because we started our business for the love of something. And, that was the reason I started this podcast. I had never done a podcast before. I didn't like speaking to camera. I hated it. And,
Wow.
it was just after the lockdown started, about 3 months after lockdown started. And I thought, how am I going to help all these business people who didn't pivot, who were challenged with, moving forward and whatever? And I thought, I'd heard of podcasts. So I thought, well, why don't I have one? So I thought, well, 2 weeks later, up and going and interviewing my first guest. And I thought, oh my God, that's amazing. And it's been going through 3 years now, nearly 3 years. So
Congratulations.
Yeah. Thanks. And
Wow.
if I don't, and it's those times when I want to give up that I remember my why I started doing it in the first place. So remembering that why is really important. And I have a vision board up in my mine's digital, but it's up on my wall, and I look at it most days. I think, well, if I want to give up, then I'm not going to get my $100,000 a year, and I'm not going to become the top 10 podcaster in Australia.
Yes.
So
Yeah, Rose, I love that. And congratulations on that. And I just want to highlight that, because to people who've never done it, it's hard to understand what a massive accomplishment that is. To do a podcast for 3 years is very impressive. It's very hard to do. Next to no one does it for that long. And you're just to be congratulated on that. And I hope that people really will just get in as much into your world as they possibly can, because you obviously have something powerful to offer. So congratulations on that, Rose. That is a massive accomplishment.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that, David. Yeah, I've got people are coming to me now from, podcast agencies and so forth. They're offering up their guests and, just random emails. I've never heard of these organizations before, and I'm getting all these emails now saying,
Yeah.
can you interview this or this person and that person? I think, oh my goodness, I'm getting famous.
And helping the rest of us get famous. So thank you.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly. That's the whole point, is to help business owners get
Yeah.
out to a different audience so that they can, get return on their time. So yeah, I'm
Right.
glad that it's helping others. It's what I set out to do, and it's paying off.
Absolutely. And Rose, one thing that that I always have to remind myself about is that if I would have said to myself 3 years ago that you will be where you are today, you will have the number of clients you have, the number of programs that you will have earned the revenue that you have earned, I would have been ecstatic. I would have been over the moon 3 years ago to know that I would be where I am today. And yet today, I look at where I am and I think it's not good enough. I'm failing. I'm struggling. This is horrible, right? And so I think it's really helpful to step back sometimes and to remind yourself, if you would have said 5 years ago to yourself, this is where you will be, you would have been ecstatic about that. But somehow in the moment, it's never good enough. And so I'm sure it's difficult for you, Rose, sometimes, to keep going where you are. But, if you would have told yourself 4 years ago, Rose, you're going to be all over the world, talking to all kinds of people and getting all this traction, you would have said, there's no way that's going to
Yeah,
happen.
you're crazy, David.
Yeah. But now sometimes you're like, oh, this is just not good enough. I'm just going to quit. I mean, isn't that funny how we are about that? So
Yeah,
it's
I
helpful
think
to
so,
remind
yeah.
ourselves of that sometimes.
Yeah, but there's always more to strive for, David.
Yeah.
Got to keep your eye on the prize, and sometimes the
Yes.
prize is, you start off with a little prize, and then the prize keeps getting bigger and bigger. It's a bit like lotteries, really, isn't it? You get a little prize, and then you just keep buying a ticket till the big prize comes up, and you keep trying
Yes.
and trying and trying until you
Yes.
finally hit the jackpot.
Absolutely. And there's a blessing, Rose, I think, in it being that way. Sometimes I think that, as business owners, we think, I want to start my business, and then I want, in 6 months, I just want to have this massive customer base and all this revenue. Very few people are ready for that kind of thing. And then I have to remind myself about this too, that the timing works the way it's supposed to work. If we started a business today and tomorrow we had 100 customers and $1 million in revenue, we would have no idea what to do with that. But as we build it little by little and we grow it incrementally, we're learning as we go. And it really, it's a blessing. It keeps us from being overwhelmed and from failing. So I think it's important when we're growing slowly, I think it's important for us business owners to remind ourselves there's really a lot of blessing in that. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. I just took a mouthful of coffee then. Sorry.
Me too.
Yeah, I do believe that is absolutely true. David, I'd love to hear about your 4 pillars. If you'd like to share them with us briefly, that would be wonderful.
Sure. I would love to. So our first pillar is taking personal responsibility 100% for your life and everything in it. And the way that we do that is by getting people to answer 4 questions. Who are you blaming? What are your excuses? What are you complaining about? And what are you waiting for? And that helps people begin to take responsibility. The second pillar is taking control of your thoughts and words. We believe that the things that you think and the words that you say create the life that you're living. If your thoughts and words are negative or disempowering, your life is going to be that way. The third pillar, as I mentioned, is to design and write out and connect daily with your ideal life. And then the fourth pillar is to initially to take one goal that is part of that vision. What's the one thing that if you could achieve would have the biggest impact on creating the life that you desire? It's different for different people. It could be health for one, money for another, relationship for another. But choose one thing as a goal. We teach people how to create a good goal, write a good goal, create an action plan. We give them support. And so those are the 4 pillars. And the reason that I teach that is because that's what worked for me. This is exactly what this is a process that I went through. It worked powerfully for me. And now it's worked for hundreds of people that I've taught and coached. And we really believe that it's an easy system to kind of learn. And it's very powerful to create the life you want.
Absolutely. And really, there's no excuse really not to create the life that you want if you look past your own and get out of your own way. I think, if you're stuck in a place, I think you really have to look at your own behavior and your own thought processes and your mindset, because I came from a very poor background, and I'm not rich, but I live comfortably, and if I could still be poor if I chose to stay in that sort of thing, but I decided that I didn't want to be, and I wanted to have a different type of life. So I'm not living my ideal life at the moment, but I will it will come sooner than I think.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're right, Rosa. I'm so happy that you and I are so aligned on this point, because that's where I was in victim mode. I felt helpless. There's nothing I can do to make my life better. I was a complete victim. And once I took responsibility, my life is not perfect. Today, it's not perfect. I'm not perfect. But the difference in my life 10 years ago and today is just massive, because I decided that the only person who could do anything about my life was me. And I started working on it. And so it's that taking responsibility is absolutely the most important step.
Yeah, and having an attitude of gratitude goes a long way.
Wow, boy, do we harp on that in my programs. We teach intentional gratitude practice, because our brains, Rose, as you know, our brains default to the negative, and that's a survival mechanism. It's good for keeping us alive, but it's terrible for making us happy. And so we default to the negative. And so if we're going to be positive and grateful, it's going to take an intentional gratitude practice. And when we do that, boy, you're right. It completely changes your life. Every day there's so many things to be grateful for, but what do most of us do? We just focus on those negative things, and we obsess about them. We complain about them, and we're just creating more negativity.
Absolutely. And the universe, will only give you back what you put out there. So if you're going to be negative vibing, then you're going to only get negative stuff to deal with. So, an attitude of gratitude doesn't matter. I mean, we all breathe. They say that, smoking's bad for you and vaping's bad for you, but we breathe, and that's bad for us too, because the air's so full of pollutants. So, but we have to do it. So.
That's right. That's absolutely right, Rose. That's right. And you see people, who complain all the time, and they just get more things to complain about. I mean, you're exactly right. When you focus and obsess about and complain about negative things all the time, all you're doing is attracting more and more and more of that. And it just perpetuates itself. The beautiful thing, though, is that not only can there be a downward cycle, we can also create an upward cycle of gratitude and blessing and abundance. And it just keeps going up when we make the choice.
It's not a religious thing. You don't have to believe in God to be grateful for everything. It's honestly, right. To me, I'm an agnostic. So, and I'm proud to say that I am, because I don't know whether there is or there isn't. So, who knows? But I know the universe exists, and I know that if I'm grateful for something, good things happen. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And Rose, I'm a devout Christian, a very strong believer in God. But you're exactly right. I work with folks who are not Christians. I work with folks who are agnostics, who are unbelievers. But you're exactly right. There are still these practices and these habits that we can create that are going to have this really positive effect on us. You can absolutely be grateful and be positive regardless of where you're coming from. There's so many things to be grateful, and so many things that are compelling motivations to really create this great life. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, I mean, one good deed, what's that old say? One good deed begets another, or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's true. If you do something nice for somebody, something nice will happen to you. It might not be today, it might not be tomorrow, but it will be sometime in the future. And I'm a great believer in always paying forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's another great thing too. If you want good things to happen, do good for others.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And, and you get the amazing feeling in yourself. I mean, how great do you feel when you do something for somebody else? And a lot of times people get caught up in negativity and complaining or venting, or maybe, treating somebody else. Maybe I see people like with people at fast food restaurants or things, people just get so angry about their order wasn't right, or something. They just let loose on people. And it feels better for just about half a second. You feel better. But how much worse do you feel about yourself when you complain, when you vent on other people? You eventually you end up feeling worse. But when you're grateful, when you're kind, when you go out of your way to practice kindness, you always create such a great feeling. I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it. You create such a great feeling within yourself. There's just so many blessings to be had by living that way. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not just on a personal level too, in your business. I mean, having a social footprint, giving to charity, helping the underprivileged. You only have to do it in a small way, whether you go and pick up rubbish in the street, or
Yes.
or go and to the soup kitchen or something, whatever the case may be. But leaving a social footprint makes you feel better. It does. And more businesses, large and small, need to make that indelible footprint in the world, where they've left their legacy somewhere, somehow, that someone will remember them for their kindness.
I love that. And I think too, Rose, that we can do this just in our day-to-day business practices. A lot of times as business owners, maybe we get caught up in, what policy is, and this is how we do things. And instead of figuring out a way to go the extra mile for a customer, instead of maybe bending a policy here or there in order to show extra kindness, or to go out of our way, maybe to give a refund or to give some extra service or something. And, that doesn't just make us feel good as people who are doing a good thing. That's going to win you a customer for life. But when we're so rigid about policies and procedures, we're rigid about things like refunds and service and that sort of thing, we're really alienating people. We're hurting our own business. But when we make it our goal to serve, to absolutely go overboard, to give amazing service, we really see, here in the States, I don't know about Australia, but here in the States, we have Chick-fil-A is a very big business here in America. And the reason that they're so successful, and they're closed on Sundays, they're only open 6 days a week, and they're just, making money hand over fist, because when you go in there, that they're going to go overboard to treat you with kindness. They're going to go the extra mile. They're going to really give you great service, and they have won lifelong customers. And so just being a decent, kind person is good in a million ways, and the bottom line is one of them.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Absolutely. David, where can people work with you to find out about these wonderful 4 pillars of yours?
Sure. I would love to connect with anybody at my website, www.takebackyl, the letters YL for your life, takebackyl.com. Or you can find me on Facebook. I tell people, if you search Facebook for David Price, a stunningly handsome man comes up at the top of that list. I'm the one right underneath him, so you can find me that way. But David Price in Morehead City, North Carolina in the U.S., or email me at david@davidpricecoachinggroup.com.
Wonderful, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rose.
I ask all my guests, if you had some words of wisdom to share, what might they be?
The biggest thing, Rose, that I try to encourage people on is that it's not hopeless. You're not helpless. There's nothing wrong with you that keeps you from getting the help you need and changing your life. So many times we feel like there's no point. We've tried and failed, and we're never going to get better. Please do not ever get up. It is not hopeless. Help is out there. Keep searching until you find it, and you're going to find it.
Absolutely, David. Thank you so much for your time
Thank
today
you,
and for
Rose.
getting up
Thanks.
at the break of dawn to speak with me. I
Absolutely.
appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am.
Bye for now.
You've been listening to Talking with the Experts, hosted by Rose Davidson. Make sure you have a look at our back catalogue over at talkingwiththeexperts.com. And be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss out on any episode. We look forward to your company next time. Talking with the Experts.